Did Jonah Hill abuse his girlfriend, his now ex-girlfriend, with boundaries, asking her for particular boundaries, the way that he texted her? We're going to get into that today. We're going to watch a video right now from psychologist Dr. Kirk Honda. He's a professor and a psychologist, and he's going to review this story. Jonah Hill's ex saying his texts are a warning to all girls. Cynthia and I are going to talk about it right now. Let's get into it.
A lot of you have been asking me to comment on the Jonah Hill controversy, so I thought to give us an introduction, I would look at the Washington Post article here. Surfer Sarah Brady posted screenshots on her Instagram and accused her ex-partner, the actor Jonah Hill, of misogyny and emotional abuse. Okay. In the texts, Sarah Brady shared a person whose number she saved under the name Jonah. So the journalist is trying to be careful, like maybe this is Jonah Hill, maybe not, but it looks like it is, that this Jonah person asked her to take down social media posts, asked her to stop modeling, asked her to cut off friendships with some men, and also cut off friendships with women who are in unstable places. Okay, so I'm going to take a look at those exact texts in a second. Okay, it says here that Sarah Brady and Jonah Hill dated for roughly a year, breaking up in 2022.
So, Cynthia, one thing I think is valuable here is it's now July of 2023. So this is a year or more ago that they've broken up. So there's some other, it seems to me there's some other influence there of why she's doing this now, right? Something we always have to consider watching media is, are they getting clout for something like this? Why would she bring this up later on? Title of the article is, "It's a Warning to Other Girls."
Yeah.
So what do you see there? The timing of this, but that she's also wanting maybe this public service announcement. Maybe it's not all altruistic or selfish, but what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely take the path that, some women process things very slowly. Maybe it's taken her this long in post breakup to come to this assertion that Jonah was abusive to her and controlling. It kind of feels a little bit more like maybe his ex-girlfriend was talking to someone else, talking to a therapist, talking to a friend, someone who was kind of boosting up this story that how misogynistic this was, like, and maybe his ex is trying to rationalize some uncomfortable feelings she's having in this post breakup by putting it out there on social media. And the reason why she's doing that, I'm not sure yet. There could be good reasons for what she's trying to do for herself, and there could be really more underlying stick it to him kind of reasons.
Says here that Sarah Brady is a California-based surfer who has advocated for environmental causes and is a law student, according to her Instagram. Okay, so I found a video that is on the YouTube channel called Viral Vision. It seems like it's a good summary. Let's watch.
Jonah Hill is getting canceled right now by his ex-girlfriend for allegedly being misogynistic and narcissistic. She took the following private...
Okay, so right away. Now, misogynistic, I've seen a little bit of the texts, and it seems like that might be an appropriate use of that term. But the term narcissistic, I'm going to have to see a lot more data to justify that allegation. When it comes to the word narcissistic, people on the internet and in our society are now basically, I think, using the term as a stand-in for abusive. I don't know why the word abusive became out of fashion and then narcissistic just replaced it. It's not the technical term in our field. Narcissism is a very complicated term, as I've talked about in all my deep dives, but I'm going to take a guess and say that Sarah Brady is accusing him of being misogynistic, sexist, and also abusive. That's just a guess.
So one thing that really sucks to be a man is that when someone comes out and says these words and leads with these big, scary words, that all of a sudden now you're guilty until proven innocent. It's one of the scary things about this as a man, just in general. We haven't seen anything yet at this point.
Yeah. There's so many reasons why people do the way they do or have the boundaries that they have. And there's a lot of reasons why his ex-girlfriend could have felt the way she did. But I think when when women throw out labels on men, it's kind of minimizing them into a box. And I have to ask why. Why does it feel better for her to minimize her ex in this way, to slap a label on him? Does it make it more simple for her, the feelings that she's having? And does it make her feel better, less like she's having to carry a weight of an emotion?
Misogynistic and narcissistic. She took the following private conversation via text messages to her Instagram story last night with Jonah Hill. Says, "Speaking out is so..."
Okay, so they broke up about a year ago, and then for some reason last week she posted some text exchanges allegedly between her and Jonah Hill. So I wonder what prompted that.
Sarah then posted the following story saying,
okay, so looks like these are the text exchanges. This is a warning to all girls. If your partner is talking to you like this, make an exit plan. Love y'all. Call me if you need an ear.
"To all girls, if your partner is talking to you like this, make an exit."
Okay. So I just have to say, she's not really asking the internet to call her if they need an ear. And so we're going to see what's coming up here. And it's so crazy to think how much of this is virtue signaling, how much of this is because she wanted to get her name out there. I don't know what's happened. Maybe he was horrendous and we don't know. But love y'all, call me if you need an ear is just reeks of disingenuousness. Because if that's where it feels incredibly disingenuous. She wants to say the right thing and she wants to support other people. Help me understand a woman's point of view behind the scenes here. Call me if you need an ear.
That's very hard for me to connect with, considering that this isn't a message that she's sending to a friend or even to a small group of friends. I can resonate with what you said about virtue signaling. It makes me feel like she wants to be a part of a group. She wants to be known as, hey, I'm part of this group of women that's been misused or abused or controlled by a man. And that's giving her something. That's giving her some identity, something that she was lacking before. And it's kind of that lack in self that can cause a woman to reach out and try to fill it with other things. And sometimes that's being a little dramatic or a little hyperbolic, even with something that caused some real pain, not really owning what's really going on, but creating like this drama around you so that you feel like you're not alone, that you feel like someone else is to blame, that at least you feel included in someone else's group after you've left this particular partnership.
"Love y'all, call me if you need an ear." The text messages shown say the following: "All the posts removed from my page with a screen recording attached." Jonah Hill then replied, "Good start. You don't seem to get it, but it's not my place to teach you."
Okay, so little I do know, I believe the context of this is that Jonah Hill was asking her to take down pictures and videos of her in a bikini. So in the article it says she's a law student, but I thought she was also a professional surfer or a surf instructor or something. But regardless, let's just say that she's a recreational surfer and takes pictures of herself surfing. My understanding is that Jonah Hill was asking her to take down those pictures and other pictures that he thought were inappropriate or triggering to him or something. And the way it looked to me was that he was jealous. And jealousy is a feeling that all of us are prone to feel at times, depending. And it's what we do with the jealousy is the issue, not whether or not we feel it. People will often try to get rid of their jealous feelings, which often doesn't work. Jealousy, depending on what we're talking about, but in this situation, the trigger is for Jonah, I think, I can't tell, but I've treated a lot of clients. You see your partner doing something or some circumstances happening that triggers your worry that you're going to lose your partner. They are going to leave you or they'll find someone else better than you, that's usually the worry, right? Whether you can admit that to yourself or not. And that feeling is a good feeling. I have that with my wife. I don't want to lose her. I might occasionally be triggered along those lines. It's a normal feeling. It can even be a positive feeling, meaning that if there is distance between me and my wife, I feel that distance and I feel hurt or I feel worried that I'm going to lose her. So I want to be closer with her. And maybe it's a conversation that we have or putting more effort into the relationship or something. You know, these are normal, good attachment-oriented feelings and motivations. But what do we do with the jealous feelings? Do we control by telling someone they can't do certain things? Do we put them down? Do we abuse them? Do we hit them? So I'll just role play what I would say if I were in Jonah's shoes, or what I believe to be Jonah's shoes. For the record, I don't have this kind of jealousy. My wife is a professional model and has a lot of pictures out there that are, you know, revealing, if you will, and it never triggered me. She models with other men where they are being romantic together. I feel very secure in my relationship with my wife, so that sort of thing just doesn't trigger me. I'm not saying I'm better than other people. I'm just saying that just isn't an issue for me in particular. But anyway, so if I were actually jealous in that way that I think Jonah was, I would try to say something like this. I would try to say something like, so, Sarah, when you post pictures like that, which is completely your right, and I don't want to control that, but when you post pictures like that, it kind of freaks me out. So I guess what I am now alerted to is that I'm not totally secure that you want to be with me. You know, when you post pictures like that, in my head, I go to these really crazy places where I think that someone is going to be attracted to you and they're going to contact you, or I worry that you're going to meet another surfer and he'll be, you know, more attractive than me, or you'll be attracted to him more than, and the two of you have that in common of surfing, and I'm just terrified that I'm going to lose you. I think that's what's happening for me.
How would this come across to you if your partner said those things to you? What's your gut feminine reaction and response?
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like in the popular psychology world, he's saying all the right things, but his energy feels, there's almost like a limpness to it, an uncalibration with his vulnerability. And I feel like he's taking who he is as a man and making himself less. There's not a lot of confidence there. And as much as a human being, I absolutely get that. And should he be able to express those feelings? Yes. But to his woman, his partnership, the polarity of relationship, I would end up starting to get kind of into mommy mode. Like I either need to take care of him or reassure him, or I might even get angry of like, how can you be jealous? We've already talked about this before. It doesn't feel like he's standing authentically in his power and sharing authentically.
Yeah, he's inferring here with telling her these things that she's responsible, or what, that she's to do something about this. It would take a masterful partner, man or woman, to hear these things and not get defensive, first of all, right? Or to not think this person is asking me to do something about this or fix this. And what he's saying is it's his insecurity, not, he's framing it that it's not her problem.
Mm-hmm.
And he's doing this nice, okay, roommate type of communication that therapists teach. But he's coming across as though he doesn't know what to do with these feelings. And then therefore what? And then therefore what? So that what, his wife is supposed to carry this? His wife is supposed to comfort him and, you know, tell him it's going to be all okay? Is she supposed to now try to prove to him that she's not going to leave? It would take, I think, a masterful woman. So let's say that she is able to say, hey, thank you for sharing that with me. Let's go from there.
So I guess I'm just wondering how you feel about me. Do you ever have those impulses of wanting to be with other people? I don't know. Let's have a conversation about it.
Okay. So yeah, give us your response to that.
That's really putting
Like jump
her wife on the spot. Like I instantly feel like put on the spot.
Do you ever think about being with other people?
Yeah.
What do you think about me?
Oh, that's like I instantly feel almost ashamed, even though I'm not even in this situation, and I'm sure his wife hasn't done anything, but it's very much his own shadow putting it in her lap, and almost testing her of, tell me why I'm feeling this way. And that's just, it kind of makes, again, I like know as a human being, I get it. But as a woman, my skin's kind of crawling. Like, I don't want to be in this conversation.
Yeah. So if I go at this a different way with the tenets that we believe that we practice in our relationship and that we teach in our coaching and in our membership groups, if I take full responsibility for how I'm feeling and I do it in a fun way, a playful way, how could I see this as a benefit maybe to me? Or how could I be in lover energy when I'm even bringing this up? So let's say that this does cross a boundary for me. Maybe you can see her nipples through this particular bathing suit. Okay. And I don't know if she's aware of that or not, but I'm not comfortable with that. So I might say, hey, I want to talk with you about something. I saw the recent bikini pictures that you had, and god damn, you're fucking hot in those pictures. And is it just me, or can I see your nipples through the anyway? It made me want to kill every other surfer on the beach. It made me want to, go out and bonk you on the head and pull you back to the cave. Of course, that's caveman of me. That's in there too. So tell me about the bathing suit. Did you know you can see your nipples through that? Oh no. Or yeah, I did. Yeah, you did. She did know. Okay. Oh, well, okay. I'm not comfortable with that. This is something I'm not comfortable with.
Yeah.
Stating just I'm not comfortable with something is a soft boundary. Trying to give an ultimatum, like you need to do X, Y, Z, is trying to control, telling them what they need to do. But a hard boundary may say, hey, I want you to know that if you ever put a picture where you can see your nipples on it again, that this relationship is over. That's a hard boundary, which we want to start with humor, lover energy, what's going on within me in relation to my instincts, the lover and king and warrior within me, using those archetypes within story to translate and talk about. And you can even see, I have a lot of energy. You could feel bad and nervous and anxious, and that's a lot of moving energy. But how about I bring that out in a way that is, let's say, exciting at the very least when we talk about this? Hey, you're hot in this picture, and goddamn. And like, I was getting a little bit of chubby looking at this. And I thought, how many other thousands of guys are getting a chubby looking at my wife's nipples? And I realized, I'm not okay with a bathing suit where you can see your nipples through it.
Yeah.
How does that come across? How's that different than, have you ever thought about being with other people? I don't feel good about us. What do you think about us right now? How's that different?
Yeah, I mean, already the way you proposed it, I feel a lot more respect. And then I also feel like there's a lot more to play on the table. Like, oh, this is a man to be taken, seriously. He's not going to just stick around if my source of inspiration as a woman is to get as much attention from every man out there as possible. This particular man doesn't want to be in a relationship with that. I can feel I respect that. Whereas before, even, this therapist giving what he would say to his wife, there is a lack of respect, an energy that's kind of like collapsing in on itself, versus this is an energy that is expanding outward.
So what I said could be considered misogynistic. Like, I wanted to take you back to the cave. I wanted to kill all the other surfers. And I'm saying it in like a jovial, high energy type of way, dancing with my shadow instead of being afraid of my shadow. But, well, Cynthia, isn't that misogynistic? The things I just said, isn't that like terribly wrong of me to even joke in that way? Aren't you offended?
Yeah, as you were saying it, I was like, oh, damn it. I can hear the like, oh, like men are so like territorial, and this is why like our world has to change. I would dare to say that beneath all of that, and beneath pains of the past or situations in the past where women have gone through tremendous pain, or where they feel misunderstood in the present moment, women in relationship deeply want to be cherished, deeply want to be wanted, deeply want to be with someone who looks at them and goes, you're the one I want to be with the kind of ownership that comes from the heart. Like, I want to be your man. I want to stand with you in this life. I want to do this in a way where we both get to like flourish together. So yeah, on the surface level, she may still struggle with that. She may still feel like she needs to be a wild horse running in the wind, but I bet deep down inside, she deeply wants to be cherished and owned in a sacred way by love, where someone very much sets his eyes on her and says, you're the one that lights me up and inspires me in my life.
And if so, could you reassure me that you're not going to leave me? So you notice in the role play.
Could you reassure me? Could you reassure me that you're never going to leave me? Yeah, let's keep going.
Role play that I am role playing how to talk about the feelings and how to get your needs met, because that's all jealousy is telling us, is that a need isn't being met. Something.
Okay, so this is a whole other discussion of whether your wife telling you that she's not going to leave you is an actual need. Like where is this feeling come from? It's coming from within him. It's coming from within the old story that he has of potential abandonment, from his attachment style from childhood, from previous trauma or experiences he's had in a relationship otherwise. So is that really a need, or is it just something that he feels like he wants? His emotions are needy actually in that moment.
Is wrong. But what people typically will do is they will resort to a script that is given to them by sexism, by misogyny, by toxic masculinity that involves control, because that's what other people might say, that's what they might have seen other people do, other people might advise them to do that. And there isn't a script that is provided in our culture regarding the role play that I did, where you actually get your needs met and communicate about things in a more effective way. So I think what we're looking at here is Jonah replying to Sarah saying, good start, regarding taking down those pictures from Instagram. You don't seem to get it, but it's not my place to teach you. You don't seem to get it, but it's not my place to teach you. That's pretty condescending. We don't know if this is accurate. Is it Jonah Hill?
Yeah, I'd agree that's pretty condescending. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like he's putting himself on I'm on a different echelon than you, and that's kind of gross.
It's approaching contempt.
The context, it's hard to tell with text, but I don't know. There's a pretty clear communication there. You don't seem to get it, meaning that he thought that she was taking them down to please him because she believes him to be unreasonable. So she's just complying with him rather than understanding what he's trying to say. And then he's like, you don't seem to get it, but it's not my place to teach you. Again, it's hard to tell what that means, but that doesn't look good. I've made my boundaries clear. You refuse to let go of some of them, and you've made that clear. And I hope it makes you happy. I've made my boundaries clear. So I think there's a lot of talk about this word of boundaries. Anyway, we know that Jonah Hill is in therapy and very much values it. And so it's possible that he's picked up on therapy speak regarding boundaries, and people will do this. And more and more lately, for example, misusing words like narcissist, that kind of thing. But I've known it for my entire career. I have a lot of friends who are therapists, and even 30 years ago, I remember some of my colleagues and friends would misuse our language and our concepts and our terms as a way of trying to justify their own issues, maybe toxic issues. I remember an instance like this in my early career where I had a friend of mine who was becoming over-involved with another friend's marriage. And I was advising my friend who is a therapist, and saying something like, you know, it's fine that you want to help your friend and his marriage, but it's not really your place. You seem to be invading this marriage too much, in my estimation. And my friend said to me, justifying his actions, he says, well, they've triangulated me. And I won't go into the whole details on triangulation or listen to my deep dives on that, but he was basically saying that the couple, the married couple, had actually sucked him in and he didn't have any control over it, that kind of thing. And that wasn't the way it looked to me. It looked like more like my friend was invading. Now, might there have been a little bit of triangulation, but it seemed much more initiated by him. So I remember noting that. I was like, oh, it's interesting that.
Yeah, please remember that therapists are human beings and that not all therapists are good. Okay. Some are good, some are not good. His little story here of a therapist playing the victim and saying he was sucked into triangulation by the other two, you don't have to play into triangulation. And we'll talk about that more another time.
He is using our therapy speak, our concepts, and he's distorting them to justify his own actions, which all therapists will do. There's no, I do that too. When I'm upset and distorted and triggered, I'm going to see the world in my particular distorted, biased way, and I'm going to use the concepts that are available to me. Some people might think it's unethical or something to do that, but I can't help the way that I see the world, and I see the world through my therapist lens that I've had for 30 years. So
I'm not quite sure what he's trying to say here. He's sort of dismissing that he's not aware enough or control enough within his own self when he's escalated to not fall into this intellectualization, this therapy speak that he's saying here. Which if I was one-on-one with this guy, I'd ask him about that, to be honest.
It seems like possible that, if I'm interpreting it right, that Jonah Hill is doing that as well, that he's triggered, he's terrified he's going to lose Sarah. It doesn't justify him being controlling in this way or misusing therapy terms, but it is a common thing for people to do, especially if Jonah Hill sees the world through this lens. It's also possible that Jonah Hill might have, this is all speculative, but I've seen this in the real world, right? Where people will go to therapy and they will give their very distorted bias story to their therapist, and their therapist will believe it and be convinced of it and not confront it.
Wait, that happens? That happens? Hold on. Okay.
At all, and will even recommend or entertain ideas of just like, maybe you should draw boundaries and say that she can't do that kind of thing. And so Jonah Hill might even literally be using phrases that the therapist even provided him regarding this specific situation. Of course, there's no data regarding that, but I just thought I'd throw it out there.
I've made my boundaries clear. You refuse to let go of some of them, and you've made that clear, and I hope it makes you happy. Then proceeded to attach a screenshot of Sarah's most recent Instagram video. Jonah Hill proceeded to say, respect however you want to live your life. You only get one sort of done with explaining myself.
So, yeah, she is surfing. she has some sort of swimwear on, because assume that's what you wear when you are surfing. And then he says, respect however you want to live your life, and you only get one sort of done with explaining myself. So it sounds like this is in the midst of a conflict that they were having, maybe in person. She says, 3 removed, meaning she took down 3 things. Not the video yet. It is my best surfing video. Would you feel better if the cover frame was different? Ew, this really is icky to look at, for someone to control someone like this, and for someone, Sarah, to make her feel like she's like, I'm sorry. To hear her being forced into a situation where she has to be like, would you feel better if the cover frame was different? Any more?
It looks like Jonah is really swinging his weight around here, kind of condescending in the text, like we said. Mm-hmm. This isn't a healthy way to try to uphold a boundary. He's kind of whining and complaining back to her. So definitely not great. But then what she's saying, would you feel better if the cover frame was different? She's trying to be in a relationship with this man. She wants him to feel better, it seems. She's trying to, work with him, it sounds like. Any more specific ones than that bother you? What do you see here that maybe I'm not seeing? Is there some kind of fear or coercion that women feel in this spot, where the psychologist, thinking that she's being victimized here so acutely? Is there something that I'm missing?
Well, it helps me understand maybe why then she posted these texts like a year later. Because right now I'm seeing a woman who is trying to be pleasing in a relationship. Her man is unhappy with what's going on. She's trying to fix it. She's trying to appease him. In doing that, I think it kind of shows how we as women can do that very much in relationship. When we want the relationship, when we want to be in on the adventure, we don't want to lose, we can mold ourselves to, what the other person, their hurts and desires and wantings. And then getting out of the relationship, then there can be a sense suddenly of anger that she hid part of herself or made part of herself smaller, or maybe she felt kind of weak how she responded, and she doesn't like how that makes her feel about herself because it makes her feel vulnerable. And so a year later comes out like this kind of vindictive behavior of, see, you were so wrong and bad, and I'm not going to let any other woman be victimized in this way, because it's really helping her with that feeling of, I feel weak, I feel vulnerable, I'm afraid of that part of my femininity that's willing to flow in order to keep relationship alive.
Something to be aware of as a man is Jonah may think he was doing great here because, and by the way, this is over text, which is a horrible idea. Okay. Not just because she can show it to the world later, but because you can't see each other's body language or your voice tonality or, connect. And so he may think he's doing well, and he may think, okay, good. She's stepping toward me. She's doing what she should be in a relationship. And he might think, everything's fine, but she's growing inside this resentment or this concern and this anxiety, this feeling misused, as you're describing there.
And the power shift the dynamic is shifting, because I would imagine in him kind of at this level 1 of setting boundaries, and she's following along, is giving him a sense of, wow, I'm really, his ego's getting a little inflated.
Yeah.
And she's kind of being in the more flow and the feminine. And so there is this shift, which again helps me understand why then there's like a boomerang back after the breakup a year later, when she's trying to reclaim maybe something she felt she lost, but probably showed up to this relationship already needing filled in anyways.
Any more specific ones that bother you? To think that this would make her feel like she's a bad person or a slut, or it's upsetting.
Let's say that she was a surfer before he met her, where I think, from what I've heard from researching this and seeing other videos on this. So she already was posting these pictures. She already had this friend group. She already was doing this as at least a hobby, and while she's going to law school or whatever the situation is. So she already is living her life like that. So for him to try to shift that, to change her, feels naive to me. Like when he got into the situation, he was a bit, let's say, blinded by her beauty or her attention for him. And then he's trying to change her after the fact now, is what it looks like to me.
Say, respect however you want to live your life. You only get one sort of done with explaining myself. Sarah responded with 3 removes, not the video. Yet it is my best surfing video. Would you feel better if the cover frame was different? Any more specific ones that bother you? Jonah Hill replied with, yes, one that isn't of your thong. Sarah replied, not a thong, but K.
Okay, so he's still upset. She, according, in terms of the tone of the texts, is being extremely accommodating and nice to him, even though I don't think he deserves it necessarily, given what I think the context is. And she's like, would it be okay if I did this and anything more specific? And he's like, yes, I mean, just interpreting that tone, but one that isn't of your ass in a thong. And she's like, it's not a thong, but okay. And as far as other pictures, you in a bathing suit surfing or not?
Yeah. So he's looking to fill an inside insecurity within himself from something from the outside. Like he's obviously rolling here. He isn't aware of what's going on within his body, within his emotions, and he's just flailing that, shooting that out at her, hoping that she can fix him, is what I'm hearing here.
So I think the way his ex-girlfriend Sarah handled this a year after the fact, posting these texts, is maybe not the greatest choice and is not really putting out the deeper message that women really need to hear. But what I see here with what Jonah's doing is he's doing, and I've felt this before as a woman, like he's got the upper hand in this situation, and he's kind of like doling out the plates on the table. Like, I want you to fill this dish and this dish, and no, do it this way and this one. He's kind of feels like he's taking advantage of this, the cards that are in his hand. And when that happens, when the masculine is doing that as a woman, it's very nerve-wracking, because you feel like at any moment the tablecloth can be ripped out, and this person can say, I'm done, I don't want you. But what can happen then over time, though, is if she's been serving up on the platter he's putting out there, this resentment will build, and maybe she wants more distance from him. And then maybe there will start to be this rebelliousness that comes out, where she almost gets this satisfaction in doing exactly the opposite of what he said he wanted her to do.
Is he saying any pictures of her in a bathing suit of surfing? So I don't know.
Jonah Hill responds, and as far as other pictures, you are in a bathing suit surfing or not, I'm done. There's tons I'm going back to the past month. You want to argue and I don't.
All right. He says, I'm done. There's tons. I'm just going back the past month. You want to argue and I don't. She says, you're done. What does that mean? Yeah. Okay. We don't know the situation. When I evaluate couples or individuals regarding domestic violence, intimate partner violence perpetration, it takes a long time. There are measures we use, instruments that we use, assessments that we use. Also, you have to interview quite a bit. And it can be hard to tell, even when everyone's being honest, when you have police reports, this kind of thing. But the process, it is lengthy, it is in person, there's multiple vectors of data that you are gathering. And as a clinician, I don't make a public statement. I make recommendations of treatment, or sometimes there's recommendations to the court, that kind of thing. So it's impossible for me to be able to gauge what's really going on based on this limited information. However, there are some things that I can comment on. I can use it as a jumping off point. And I can tell you that I've treated a lot of people a lot of perpetrators of intimate partner violence who will do this sort of thing. If you watch my videos or listen to my podcast, you know that my perspective is that abusive people, perpetrators, typically are reacting due to attachment worries. They are worried they're going to lose their attachments, and they have a very dysfunctional, possibly criminal way of trying to solve that problem. They are worried they're going to lose their partner, and so they will gaslight and keep them away from other people. They will put them down, because if the victim feels bad about themselves, they won't assert themselves. They won't try to have power in the relationship or power in the world. And it's all generated from the perpetrator's terror of losing attachments. It doesn't make it okay. There are abusive people who are psychopathic and or sadistic and don't necessarily have those kinds of wounds, but those are rare perpetrators. I treated perpetrators who were court mandated into the group that I was a clinician in, and we would treat them over a year in group therapy to de-brainwash them, because they often had these very misogynistic and entitled notions about what it is to be a man, because the group that I'm referring to in my mind right now was for male perpetrators. It was a very involved process, a lot of emotional regulation, a lot of trauma recovery, a lot of psychological issues. Is very involved. And so I learned that abusive people typically have a very particular mindset that informs what they do. It feels right to them. It feels okay. Some of the language in this text is indicative of that, where they will feel very righteous, they'll feel very entitled. There will be this very certain way of talking. Abusive people of a particular profile will be very certain as they talk to the victim. They'll just be like, you're wrong, there's something wrong with you. And they might even threaten to break up at times, of just like, look, if you're not going to give in on this, then I'm done, I break up. I don't know if that's what we're seeing, but I just thought I'd use it as a jumping off point. My whole point in making these kinds of videos is so that I can raise awareness for intimate partner violence in general, relationship dynamics in general, victimization in general, not only for victims to get the help that they need, because sometimes when you hear people on the internet talking about these sorts of things, you're like, oh, maybe that's me. But also, if you've been through it in the past, you deserve to seek help with a therapist that understands you so you can recover, because there can be ongoing effects from it. But also for perpetrators, I will get emails and comments below from perpetrators that that will tell me that because of the way I talk about perpetrators, I don't let them off the hook, but I will have some compassion for perpetrators because I treat perpetrators. And one of the key factors in my model of helping perpetrators is that I have compassion, that I try to have care for them. And that is the inroad to actually helping them to, at the very least, believe me when I'm telling them that there's another way to get their needs met, and the way that they're doing it is not only criminal and wrong, but it's not ultimately going to get them what they want. And so compassion and care and really accurately seeing these individuals, I think, is the key to treatment. So when I propose that vibe, that perspective, perpetrators listening will email me and say, for the very first time, I feel like I'm able to admit that I'm a perpetrator of abuse. And if there are other clinicians like you out there, which there's thousands of clinicians like me, unlike Stutz, I'm not going to claim that I'm one of a kind, because I am not one of a kind. I am part of a very large field. I stand on the shoulders of giants. Everything that I know came from people before me. So, I'm just one of many. That's why I'm doing all this stuff. I'm not doing it necessarily to say anything specific about Jonah Hill and Sarah Brady, because that would be diagnosing from afar, and I don't have enough information. And if I did, I wouldn't publish it on the internet because of confidentiality. But let's watch more.
Sarah responds with, "You're done? What does that mean?" Jonah Hill then says, "I'm just over-explaining myself." Sarah then posts a cropped picture saying, "I too struggle with mental health, but I do not use it to control people like he did to me. It's been a year of healing and growth with the help of loved ones and doctors to get back to living my life without guilt, shame, and self-judgment for things as small as surfing in a swimsuit rather than a more conservative wetsuit. And I'm sure there's still more healing from this pain ahead of me."
Yeah, so
Yeah, I would agree that he was slathering her with guilt and shame and judgment that he was projecting on her. He was unaware of those things. That's such a huge piece of this work as a man, is you first being aware of what's behind the curtain, what's within your shadow, as you were saying. And it's seemingly unaware of that through what the few texts that we've seen here, even after that whole Stutz therapy movie that he put out. He's still projecting a lot of these things.
What I really feel, at least in the way Jonah's words come out here, is there's an intensity there. There's an intensity of his unrealized shadow, but it comes from a very almost a young place inside of him. And it's really hard to see just kind of our natural human faux pas coming through and then labeled so intensely. I'm sure the label matches the intensity that the woman in this experience was feeling, but that's because her emotions were intense. And guilt and shame and self-judgment are so much a part of what can be a part of a woman's world, regardless of a relationship, that any woman is powerful and strong, seeking help to move through that, just in our world in general, and how she grew up, and maybe the judgment she just sees in the general culture.
If it was ongoing and the text exchange is indicative of what was ongoing, then yeah, it's hard to feel the emotional pressure from the texts, but I've seen it enough to know that it's unlikely that there wasn't emotional pressure, and it's also unlikely that that emotional pressure was only present for short periods of time over text. It was probably 99% of the time it was in person that Jonah Hill was putting this emotional pressure, seemingly. So then yeah, that can take a toll on you. Absolutely. It can break you down. It can make you feel like you're worthless or disgusting or wrong or not a good partner or a slut. Even for me, I've been through an abusive relationship, and as a clinician, I've treated perpetrators and victims, and so I see the signs, and I know the mindset of victims and the pitfalls that a victim will fall into, because they'll end up believing what is being told to them, and yet I still couldn't protect myself from those effects. I have everything available to me. I have support. I have a lot of privilege in life. And even though I had all that expertise, I couldn't protect myself from the negative effects of the abuse. So it'll get under your skin eventually, is my point, is that even in the beginning, if you're just like, I don't know about that, but it's just unrelenting. And there's these Ys in the road that you will make psychologically where you're forced to choose between two things. You can choose to continue to stand up for yourself and even believe that the other person is wrong, but what that results in is a lot more conflict, a lot more strife, and attachment loss for yourself. That's one thing that people don't emphasize enough, is that for victims, they often are really desperate for the attachment. There's a lot of good things to the relationship, right? And especially if you come from your own attachment traumas, then there might be some complications there, right?
So if you're a man and you feel alone, and a lot of men that are watching this type of content are, where their wife says she loves them but not in love with them, or you're separated right now, you're trying to save your marriage, you want to restart something, version 2.0 of the marriage. And if you feel like you're alone, I want you to know that you're not. And that's why we have a free private Facebook group. That's why we have free public group calls that we do, of course, in addition to our paid stuff. So if you're curious, if you want to be a part of our free private Facebook group or be a part of our free public calls, go to greatmenmovemountains.com, check out our free stuff, reach out to me. You can join our Facebook group through our website as well, greatmenmovemountains.com/Facebook. Request to come in and we'll welcome you in. So check out those resources if you feel alone, or if you feel like maybe you're being abused or victimized in any of these kind of controlling ways, or you don't know which way is up right now. Join us in our stuff.
To choose between staying within reality and valuing yourself and asserting yourself, but causing a lot of problems and risking losing your partner, which most people don't want to do, even if the partner is abusive. Or you can take this other road where you just give in, and you might even gaslight yourself, or you might even just convince yourself that, yeah, maybe I am wrong. Maybe I am a slut. Maybe I am a gross, disgusting person, or my body is a thing that needs to be covered. So often with enough time, it's so much easier just to take that route. And then once you're out of the relationship, it takes a lot of time to come out of that mindset because you've done it to yourself. The voices have gotten inside your head and now you're abusing yourself, and it takes a lot of therapy and healing to get rid of those voices. Okay, so this is taking longer than I thought. So let's adjourn there, part 1,